Okay, what is up there, YouTube? This is J-Man Time, and today I have a video on one of the strangest mysteries, at least when it comes to Hungary in the aftermath of World War I, and this has to do with a rather strange submarine that appeared in the Danube, in the Hungarian section of the Danube River in the year of 1918-1919. And this here is the story of Hungary's first post-World War I submarine, and technically Hungary's first true submarine, as most submarines that were constructed for the Austro-Hungarian Navy during the Austro-Hungarian era were constructed either in Austria or constructed in what is now Croatia and Bosnia during the era of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. And that submarine is the Hungarian submarine UB-3, which first appeared in March of 1918. While going over some rare footage of the early Hungarian Navy from 1918 through 1919 during the era of the Hungarian Soviet Republic, a republic that only lasted a few months between 1918 and 1919 and was ultimately defeated by Romania during the Hungarian-Romanian War of 1918 through 1919, I noticed a rare submarine in this footage, which was filmed in the year of 1919 during this Hungarian-Romanian War of 1918 through 1919. Now, the submarine in the footage looks very odd. At first, you would think that this is an Austro-Hungarian submarine from the First World War, and you would be wrong. This is actually an ex-Russian submarine, or an ex-Imperial Russian Navy submarine that was captured by Austro-Hungarian forces in Odessa, Ukraine in early 1918. Now, this submarine was renamed the UB-3 by Hungarian forces during the post-World War I era, but its real name is the Russian midget submarine, the U-3, also known as the Type 27 submarine Model 3, and this was actually a rare experimental Russian midget coastal submarine that was part of a class of submarines that were constructed for the Imperial Russian Navy that would serve in the Black Sea region, and these submarines were constructed in the port of Reni, which is located in the Odessa region of modern-day Ukraine, which at the time was part of the Russian Empire. Now, the UB-3 / the Russian submarine U-3 was part of a class of submarines that were called the Type 27B class of midget submarines that were constructed between the years of 1910 and 1914. Now, these were Russian midget submarines that were actually based on the American Howland class of submarines that were constructed in the late 19th century and early 20th century. Now, in the year of 1900 through 1904, Russia actually purchased a small batch of at least 5 American Howland-built submarines for the Imperial Russian Navy. And later on, in the year of 1910, Howland was contracted again, this time to help Russia construct submarines for their Navy in Russia, or in Imperial Russia at the time. And these submarines were constructed in what is now known as Odessa, Ukraine in the modern era. These Type 27B submarines had a displacement of 33 to 44 tons, that's both surfaced and submerged. They were powered by 2 engines, one diesel engine and one electric motor with a horsepower. The diesel engine had a maximum horsepower of 50 horsepower, while the electric engine had a horsepower of just 35 horsepower. The speed of these submarines were 8 knots surfaced and 6 knots submerged, and they were powered by oil, diesel oil. They had a maximum range of 150 nautical miles surfaced and 18 miles submerged, and they were armed with 2 457mm torpedo tubes, and they carried between 2 and 4 torpedoes. They had a crew of between 4 and 6, and a maximum diving depth of 30 meters. Now, 3 of these experimental submarines were constructed between the year of 1910 and 1914, and all 3 submarines entered service with the Russian Black Sea Fleet in October of 1914. Now fast forward to March the 3rd of 1918, the joint German and Austro-Hungarian forces had captured all of Ukraine from the Imperial Russian forces. This included the naval base at Rene in Odessa, Ukraine. And during the capture of this base, the Austro-Hungarian forces stationed there actually came across a submarine that was half submerged next to the Russian base in the Black Sea. The submarine was later raised with 2 barges and transported up the Danube River all the way to the Hungarian section of the Danube River, to an area known as Óbuda, which at the time was used as a naval base and naval barracks by the then Austro-Hungarian Navy based in the Hungarian section of the Danube River. Now, later on, at the end of World War I, Austria-Hungary would disintegrate, and the nations of Austria, Hungary, and what would be called Yugoslavia would come out of the collapse of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Hungary inherited what was left of the Austro-Hungarian Danube River Flotilla, which was the Austro-Hungarian Navy on the Danube River that included this captured Russian submarine, the U-3. In November of 1918, there was a massive uprising, communist uprising, in Hungary, led by a man named Bela Kun, or Kun Bela, who was the leader of the newly formed Hungarian Socialist Republic. And this would later lead to a major conflict between the newly formed Hungarian Socialist Republic and Romania. This was known as the Hungarian-Romanian War of 1918 through 1919. In May of 1919, the submarine was refurbished, fully refurbished, back to working order, and it was pressed into service with the Hungarian Soviet Republic Navy based on the Danube River. This navy again was made up of ex-Austro-Hungarian warships and warships that were captured from the Imperial Russian Navy at the end of World War I. The submarine served all the way up until November the 18th of 1919, when Hungary eventually lost the war against Romania. At the end of this Hungarian war, the submarine was seemingly captured by Romanian forces, or simply was abandoned. According to Hungarian archives, the submarine was then towed to Novi Sad in Serbia, where it stayed for a few months before being transported back to Hungary to an area known as Újpest, which is another port city based on the Danube River and the Hungarian section of the Danube River. After 1919, this submarine disappeared from history. According to some records, the submarine was demolished at some point in the 1920s or 30s, and so that's really it. This rare submarine was technically the only real submarine to serve in the Hungarian Danube Flotilla during the end of World War I and during the Hungarian-Romanian War of 1918 through 1919. And also during the post-war era, as it seems as if this vessel was still in service for many years after being returned to Hungary in late 1919. But what do you all think of this? Hungary's first submarine? So what do you all think of this? The first Hungarian submarine. Technically the only Hungarian submarine. The UB-3, also known as the ex-Russian Type 27B submarine, the Russian submarine U-3, from 1914. Please tell me in the comments section below, and until next time, this was J-Man Time, signing off.